Interrogation Room 37D. Mayoral Office, Annex. 12:57 p.m. At the mention of "you people are all nutcases" from Jack Hawthorne's mouth, the other occupancies of the room almost stared into a frenzy. But, like Jack, he was pretty much bolted to his seat. Thankfully, Hareen thought to herself, it appears that Jack is more interested in egging the other man into a frenzy than being sarcastic with me, which is a nice change of pace. Hareen, or, as Jack called her, Harry, because it drove her to distraction that he'd nickname her, was an agent. Surprisingly, not with the Interior, but with the military police that had been deployed to Houston almost 3 months ago. They were under the nominal control of an Interior officer, but they weren't strictly Interior, because an enormous space empire isn't going to fail that spectacularly on all fronts. But it did make her shake her head as the other man began belting out curses in English at Jack, who started to laugh in a rather uproarious manner, before speaking to the man in a tone that sent shivers down her spine. To her, English sounded like a staccato of sharp spikes mixed with a percussive grunt, and she could understand some of what was being said. Namely, the word coward and bitch, the latter she'd learned mostly from interacting with the locals. It was not a kind word, as it had been explained to her by her former major. However, the other man began to struggle even harder in his bonds. Enough so that the man's bright red blood started to well around his wrists, despite the restraints being cushioned enough to prevent most injuries of such a sort. "Mr. Hawthorne, if you won't stop antagonizing Mr. Garcia, I will be forced to make you share the same cell." Her voice was level and cool, so, of course, Jack shrugged with his face and gave her a bit of a grin, opening his mouth only to be cut off. "And no, it's not because of a fantasy of mine. I am fairly certain Mr. Garcia will kill you if I do that." And with that, Jack snorted with a laugh. Fine. His chill was accented, but passable. After all, it'd only been a couple of years. This wasn't so surprising. "So," Jack stated as he looked up, "where was I?" Pacholio's Pizza, Houston, Texas, 10:05 a.m. Oh, right. So there I was, drenched in glass fragments, blood and sweat. And there was the pilot, probably also drenched in sweat, likely not covered in blood, but having a bit of bad luck. And there I was, the dumb barbarian, looking at her like this was all perfectly normal. Well, that was until I gained my senses and did the only thing that was logical. I freaked the fuck out. Now, this didn't involve fight or flight, but it did involve me basically fanboying over the fact that there was a real damn spaceship with a retro-futuristic pilot in it, and the entire thing was the fucking coolest thing ever. And I was talking to a woman who couldn't understand a single word I was saying. Honestly, probably not the best impression I could have made. Now, the pilot was stock still and clearly flabbergasted. And, as she was able to tell me later when we met up, also completely freaked out that a native wasn't afraid of the fact that she had come down right in front of him. She didn't draw a gun on me, which was a plus, and then she got out. Now, listen, Harry, honey, you people are fucking tall. So yes, I'm a tiny bit intimidated when my line of sight is your bust. But, considering the reinforced flight suits that your pilots wear, and the rather broad widths of her shoulders compared to me, yeah, I kinda assumed she was a he. It's not surprising since, you kinda know how male-dominated the world is for us naked apes. But yeah, I was absolutely ecstatic and totally took out my phone to take a damn picture of this, and, well, that's when the adrenaline wore off. See, I did get pretty badly hurt with all the glass everywhere and the small cuts and laceration. Oh yeah, that shit hurt a lot. I still remember that I all but locked up mid-animated gesticulation and recording and had to turn it off. Yeah, turns out I really wish I'd brought a towel, because I really needed to dry off. The cut stung because of the sweat, and, well, it wasn't any better for me having bits of broken glass still stuck in my arm hair. All in all, getting blasted by glass is a 0 out of 10. I do not recommend. Now, the pilot tried to communicate with me, which was nice. However, your language kinda sounds like a harp seal trying to speak Russian, and it's quite confusing. But, I did start laughing when she spoke. I don't know if she blushed, since she had the full head hood or whatever. But yeah, so I basically got her to come inside and take a seat while I went to clean myself off. Thank God we keep extra shirts upstairs, or I might have been plumb out of luck. With what I found out about your societal norms surrounding men showing off their chests, which I find silly. Anyways, I came down with a fresh shirt, and she'd taken off her helmet by this time. Gotta say, I really was expecting something different than you ladies. Like, I was expecting at least some forehead ridges, or maybe an extra eye, or a weird nose. Nah, you look like female orcs from D&D, except you're purple. So, yeah, me and this pilot were kinda just staring at each other at this point, in the way you do when you don't expect the other person to understand what's going on. So, I did the wisest thing in the world that I know how to do, 'cause everyone's gotta eat. I motioned for her to follow me, and we go back into the kitchen. The oven's at the right temperature. It's moving right along. Might as well make some pizza. So, grabbing some of the dough that's been flattened out, I go to work.